All right, I will go ahead and get started. And I do want to point out before I do, my neighbors chose this exact moment to do some yard work. So hopefully that's not too distracting for anybody. But welcome everyone, and thank you for coming today. We are so excited that you were able to join for the Cavallo plus Avalara webinar that we have for you. Alex and I are eager to discuss the ways in which you can accelerate your order flow and your tax calculations. Avalara and Cavallo, just to give a little bit of background, have a really long-standing partnership going back almost about 9 years now. And we've cultivated a great relationship. So we're really thrilled to show you how our softwares can work together and can also work in favor of your business. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. First, I'll introduce myself so you know who you're hearing from today. My name is Courtney Ingalls, and I am a Strategic Alliance Manager over here at Avalara. In other words, I manage the partnerships, the relationships, and one of those being Cavallo. I have been here about 5 years now, and I really never thought I'd say this, but I have grown to have a love and fascination for sales tax, but more so solving the issues that go along with sales tax. And when I'm not talking, reading, and breathing sales tax, I'm usually at the beach with my lab Winston or cooking for friends and family. In fact, I am actually hosting Thanksgiving here for my family this year in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I live. So wish me luck with that. And now I'm actually going to turn it over to my counterpart, Alex, to introduce himself and chat a little bit about Cavallo. So over to you, Alex.
Sweet, thanks, Courtney. And yeah, you're good. I don't hear any of the yard work, so you're
Okay,
you're good.
glad to hear.
So yeah, my name is Alex Shellhaas. I'm the senior product manager here at Cavallo. I've been building enterprise applications for close to 15 years now, and really I spend a ton of time kind of talking to customers, talking to organizations to really kind of deeply understand their business problems. What are the challenges that they're facing, and really kind of think about ways that we can solve some of those business problems with software. And so a lot of what we're going to be talking about today has kind of been, fully entrenched in all of that and really just kind of talking to customers. So looking forward to kind of showing you kind of this partnership, and what it looks like, and really kind of showcase how we can help organizations across the board. If you're looking to distract me, I'd recommend talking about chess. So if you want to talk about kind of the Magnus or Hans drama, that would be a great place to do that. But also spend a ton of time paddle boarding and trying to bake bread as best as I possibly can. So that's a little bit about me. As far as the agenda goes today, Courtney, if you don't mind, we're going to do kind of a quick Cavallo overview, and then, talk about kind of the different challenges and areas that we can help you from a tax perspective, and then also kind of jump into the order management workflow process, and how just showcase how we add value in a lot of different ways. So excited to kind of dive in here. So with that, just to kind of give you a little bit of the history on Cavallo specifically, we've been around since 2003, which is coming up on 20 years, and really kind of always have complemented, the Microsoft Dynamics products. So, GP, Business Central, and, at this point, we've served over 1,000 organizations. We have 20,000 active users that are in our application all the time, kind of on a daily basis. And one thing that we're super, super proud of is our retention rate. So when we get a customer, we find that we're able to add a ton of value, and they stick with us as a result. And they use our applications. It becomes foundational to the way that they do business, and you can really kind of see the impact. And just to kind of show you some of our customers in the background there, you can see Char Griller, if anybody happens to have one of those grills, Blender Bottle, Gorilla Glue. Like if you're trying to stick two things together, you've probably heard of Gorilla Glue. But a bunch of different organizations that we've served, both in the distribution space, medical supplies space, and have really, really helped them scale. We serve organizations that are as small as a couple $1 million up to, over $1 billion in annual revenue. So super excited about what we're able to offer and the products that we've built. So with that, one of the things that we really, really believe on, it's kind of a core value of ours, is really kind of creating consumer grade user experiences for enterprise applications. When you think about a lot of modern enterprise applications, they're built around hyper utility, and that's super, super important, is making sure that you're helping organizations be efficient, effective at their job. But what happens kind of quite often is kind of the user experience languishes and falls to kind of second priority. What we wanted to do is build applications that were incredibly easy to use and easy to consume, and as a result, what we find is that we're able to deliver a lot more value to our customers very, very fast, because organizations, users can pick up the application, they can start using it immediately and gain value from them immediately as a result. And so what we're looking at here is really kind of a rough example of that, is actually designing an order process is super, super frustrating and complex. And we've made that process super, super simple and easy to use with kind of our consumer grade UX here. So as far as next slide, please, Courtney. Just kind of, we talked about this a little bit already, but some of the just base problems that we solve. So, if you're experiencing any of these, I'd definitely consider, giving us a chat. But, things like inefficient order entry, we've helped organizations go down drastically for how many clicks it takes. And I'll showcase that in a while here. Yeah, if you have fragmented customer data, right, you're asking about, hey, where's orders? Is it in picking? Is it in packing? Do I need to go get a credit card from the customer? We can really kind of help collect all of that information into one core spot, which makes people, kind of empowers employees and empowers them with information that's so that they can speak articulately about what the customer status is, what actually needs to happen within the order process. We give you a lot of different visibility into your inventory. We help kind of consolidate that AR information, and we help give really proactive alerts and notifications so that people can take action based on what's happening. And you don't have to go and wait for a fire to hit. We can tell you exactly when things are going wrong, quite often even before they actually go wrong. If you have multiple processes, like we've got an e-commerce channel and we've got an EDI channel, and we're operating under multiple processes, we can really kind of help solidify those processes and make them all streamlined. And one thing that we can do that I think adds a ton of value is really, really control margin at scale. So we can make it so no orders get out the door with below than ideal margin. And we can make sure that happens with our business rules and provide incredible visibility, and really, again, allow you to define a workflow that makes sense for your business. So that's just a couple example of some of the problems we solve. Next slide, please, Courtney. Okay. Oh yeah, that's my handoff back to you, Courtney. I missed that. So there you go.
Back to me. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so now that we understand Cavallo a little bit, and we will circle back around to Cavallo, we're just kind of gonna ping pong and keep your attention that way, because I know sales tax can be really riveting stuff. But we'll take a look today at the results of the sales tax management survey and how those results reflect many of the businesses that we actually end up working with. So with the sales tax management survey that we're showcasing today, 300 to 400 companies were surveyed to focus on how much time and money they were really spending on sales tax compliance. Here's a status quo. So this slide shows what we view as a status quo, what we see day to day. Many businesses handle their taxes in one or more of these ways listed. So we have the good old-fashioned Google, which we all know can be a major time suck. Then, pardon, we have outsourcing to a large accounting firm, which is costly. Some sort of tax research tool in place, or again, some combination of all of the above here. So that's what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. But how does tax management look in relation to company size? So let's take a look at some stats. All right, so what we're showing here, on average, companies are spending around roughly $15,000 per month. Or if you want to look at it on a yearly basis, that's $180,000 per year. In these areas, listed. These stats show emerging small businesses versus small and mid-sized businesses. And then we have a total there of the average. So you can see what people are spending their money on. And then for this slide, we show actually how many hours are being spent per month, and that's 150 hours per month. It could also be even more based on the industry, which we'll take a look at a little bit later on. But yeah, I don't know about you, that feels like a lot of time to me spent on the tax process. Now, when surveyed on whether or not they have hired additional staff in order to maintain tax compliance in the last 5 years, more than half indicated that they had hired and or outsourced folks to take care of this part of the business. And I will point out that SMBs, small, medium businesses, tend to have hired more staff to help with tax compliance when compared to their smaller counterparts. And they're also more likely to employ external service providers as well. So I know you're having fun with these stats, but let's take a look at some more, which will be industry costs for the average company. So as you can probably surmise, the industry in which you work in greatly influences the way that you handle your tax process. Of course, every business is different, particularly if you're focused on a certain industry. So findings show that retailers and manufacturers spend more on sales tax than software companies spend. And of course, as you can imagine, retail is spending by far the most, just because of the nature of their business. So take a look here at the dollar amount spent by each industry. So we showcased a few different industries here, being software, manufacturing, and retail. And then we kind of lumped everything else under other. And just take what you will from this slide. But again, retail definitely spends the most of all of these industries that we're showing here. And how about spending per month on an external provider? Interesting alternative to our last slide right here, as we see manufacturing being the leader here, perhaps because B2B, which, manufacturing tends to have a big B2B arm to the business, can tend to be a little more complex when it comes to taxation. Okay, I know I can't see you all right now, but just raise your hand if you are selling into or working in multiple states. I'll give you a minute. Okay, I imagine a majority of you raised your hands because these days it's really quite common to expand your footprint into other states or even other countries nowadays in some cases. But what are the implications for you if this is the case? Let's find out. Well, for one, economic nexus. So this is one of our favorite terms here at Avalara. If you've been on one of our webinars before, then you hopefully have heard this term. But if not, just because I'm not sure of the level of familiarity on the call with the Wayfair versus South Dakota case, I will kind of dive into this a little bit. This was a monumental moment for businesses across the US, this Wayfair versus South Dakota. And I'll try to keep it succinct here, but the state of South Dakota took Wayfair, and yes, I'm talking about that Wayfair, the company with all the furniture and all of that good stuff. The state of South Dakota took them to the Supreme Court as they were generating extremely high levels of revenue in their state. Wayfair's argument, they did not have physical presence in the state and thus didn't need to collect tax. South Dakota's argument, well, they were generating so much revenue in their state, they being Wayfair, that they should still be obliged to collect there, to register and collect in the state. The verdict, well, the Supreme Court sided with South Dakota and Wayfair needed to pay up. And why are we still talking about this 2018 case today? Well, because this case set a domino effect to just about every state in the US, as you can see here from the map. These are all thresholds that have been set up. So the states decided to adopt their own idea of this term economic nexus, or in other words, you now have to consider economic activity on top of physical presence into any given state when it comes to taxation and collection. So flash forward to today, And almost every state out there has set up a threshold when it comes to economic nexus. And they haven't really made it easy on the sellers either, because these thresholds are going to vary from state to state, as you can see here by the heat map. It's going to be based on dollar amount or transaction amount or some variation of both. And you can take a look at the map. We've highlighted a few of the thresholds here for you. And just give you some examples. North Dakota is one that's settled on 100,000 as their threshold. Therefore, if you are a seller into North Dakota and you surpass this threshold, then you're going to be required to register and collect there. While let's say Georgia has determined that if you sell either $100,000 or 200 transactions, then you're going to be required to register and collect there. And Kansas is a really fun one. They've said that any sale that comes into their state will thus make you have to register and collect there. Another fun tidbit, one of the probably most important things to remember when it comes to economic nexus. Many of these states do not care whether a sale is taxable or non-taxable, meaning even if everything you sell is exempt, wholesale, resale, distribution, etc. If you pass the threshold, then you will still be required to register and collect there. Again, even if all your sales are non-taxable, you could still be required to collect sales tax based on the state. And they're all a little bit different, of course. But this is really critical information for these types of sellers. If you happen to be one of these types of sellers on the call, as you might imagine, you really didn't have to worry about this prior to that Supreme Court case that I mentioned. So just kind of take this slide in and we'll move on, but really important. This is actually a perfect segue into my next slide. If you are someone who's kind of sitting there taking all this in and starting to worry about all of the areas in which you might have nexus, don't worry, I'm not going to make you raise your hand this time, but I will tell you about our free straw promotion. This is our sales tax risk assessment tool, which is normally actually a $4,500 value that you can get for free up until the end of this calendar year. So what you will do if you are interested in our straw promotion, you will fill out a questionnaire and you will receive an in-depth analysis of your nexus obligations, which you will come to find out there are many different types of nexus. I'm kind of highlighting economic nexus today, but there are quite a few other types, and I think I'll get into those later on. But then once you've done that analysis, you'll have the chance to speak with one of our tax professionals to discuss the results and kind of figure out where to go from here. So many companies that we've worked with have made some really shocking discoveries with this tool. And if you're interested, make sure to reach out to your Cavallo salesperson for more information, and we'll be excited to get that for you. Okay, let's talk about product taxability. Product taxability can be a huge challenge because it can vary from state to state, just like everything else I'm going to talk about. And even within a state, it can vary based on how a product is being used, who's selling it, who's using it, the size, or even the ingredients of the product. So here we have some fun examples. The candy bar one is my personal favorite. In Indiana, a Reese's is considered taxable, while Kit Kat and Twix are not, which is, relevant considering the holiday we just had. And this is really all due to one single ingredient, which is flour. So if you've been on one of our presentations before, you've probably seen us highlight this. These are just some kind of nuanced examples, but there actually are over 1,200 different rules like these. So just keep that in mind. Some of them are probably a lot more relevant to your business. For example, in Texas, if you're selling software, it's 80% taxable, 20% non-taxable. So while we're highlighting some of the kind of funny ones, there are some that are a little more serious that are probably more applicable to your own business. Okay, so I mentioned there's different types of nexus out there. One of those being marketplace nexus, which of course is becoming a more and more popular way for businesses to get their goods out there. Economic nexus is hard enough to track already. So this type of nexus, amongst others, just complicates things even further. So if you're selling on your Amazons, your Etsy's, your Walmarts, you might have other obligations out there. Another type of nexus to watch out for is click-through nexus. This is an out-of-state business, which establishes click-through nexus in a state when an in-state business receives a commission for referring a certain amount of sales to the out-of-state seller as through a website link, hence the term click-through. It's a little bit confusing, admittedly. That's kind of the point. So alternatively, there is also affiliate nexus, which kind of is in the name, but it can occur when you have affiliate businesses with your own. So just something to be mindful of. Okay, so let's get into audits. So exactly how painful and expensive can you expect an audit to be if you're on the call and you have been lucky enough to avoid an audit? Well, according to the survey, 14% of all participants experienced a sales tax audit during the past 5 years. And most audits, in fact, 79% were completed within 3 weeks, although a small percentage dragged on for 5 months or more. So that's pretty painful, I would say. It took employees an average of 35 hours of their time to oversee and respond to an audit. So that's 35 hours, and only thing you get in return is maybe some penalties and back taxes. And hopefully, best case scenario, you get nothing for your 35 hours. But employees in 3% of the companies devoted more than 100 hours to the audit. And then employees in 7% spent only 10 or fewer hours on the audit. So just something to think about. Here is the average spent for an ESB versus an SMB, and then just the total average overall. So what's the reasoning for the audit penalties? The top two here that I want to highlight are the sales tax errors and the exemption certificate mismanagement, which you guessed it, we can certainly assist with. In fact, we can assist with all of these areas listed here. So ultimately, the survey reveals that many hands make manual compliance costly, and companies are paying for employees to manage sales tax, and or they're paying for external services and service providers to manage that sales tax as well. Some are also paying audit penalties anyways, even when they have these employees and external service providers, and they're paying these penalties on top of what they're already paying the employees and the service providers. So the moral of the story is a lot of money and time spent on the tax process. So now that I've efficiently showcased all of the scary stats, how can we combat these hurdles related to sales tax? Let's talk about that. And one more statistical slide for good measure, the cost of status quo over a 12-month period. That's what we're looking at here. So take a look at this kind of in-depth analysis of where these hours are going. And this is total, at least 2 full months of work gone to these manual tasks, 302 hours lost. And that leads me to the question, which I think I've made somewhat obvious today, but why should we automate? Well, we see several reasons to automate, that being accuracy, efficiency, customer satisfaction, risk management, and most importantly to us is business growth. So by deflecting these tasks, you give your employees time back to focus on actual revenue generating activities. As you kind of given yourself the opportunity to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's really the main goal for us here, is to give you back that time, give you back that money to focus that in other areas of your business where you can actually see tangible revenue. And here's a pro tip: do what you do best and then outsource the rest. And I'm giving a thumbs up, but you can't see it. Okay, so Avalara is here to help execute your compliance game plan. We really make it simple for you, and we partner with you along with Cavallo on your compliance journey, whatever the case may be, whatever you need assistance with on that journey. We're there every step of the way so you can focus on your business. We built an industry-leading, cloud-based end-to-end tax compliance solution that covers all the bases for you, starting with that rate calculation on the left side, really where we got our start in the garage on Bainbridge Island. And now we're all the way over to Insights almost 20 years later. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic back over to Alex, and back to you, Alex.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, it's I always like seeing what you guys are up to. It's fascinating, and I've seen people try to do tax manually or like manage tables, and I just like shudder in fear every time. So glad you and your organization exists. It's awesome. So
Good.
yeah, so let's talk a little bit more kind of about, Cavallo, what we've been up to. So when we talk about kind of our organization, we like to kind of showcase it in a little bit of a pyramid. And really what that is kind of a good way for us to kind of articulate our value and where we are positioned within the ERP ecosystem. So Courtney, if you don't mind going to the next slide. And so this is a little bit about kind of where we are in an organization. So back to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. So that's at the bottom of the pyramid because it's foundational, or it's really important to make sure, that you're GAAP compliant, that all of your financials are doing exactly what they can do so that, Uncle Sam doesn't kind of slap you on the wrist, right? It's really foundational for all of those things to make sure that your business operates the way that, the government says you really need to operate so that you're GAAP compliant. But as a result, what it misses quite often is a lot of those flexibilities and in the way that helps kind of your business really hum. And so we like to kind of articulate our value to businesses in these three tiers. So accelerate, automate, and analyze. And so we help organizations really kind of accelerate their overall process. And what that means is those are really kind of, human efficiency type tools, right? Like they help organizations, they help people do their jobs faster, more efficiently, and more effective. And then we've got kind of this automate tier. And really what this is our products that help organizations really become more efficient, but really truly the whole organization, as you're able to define a process for the way that you manage orders, the way that you manage quotes. And what that means then is that it really kind of empowers everybody in the organization to really get full visibility. And then it automates the things, so many of the things that really should be done by a computer, automates systems and processes that don't need to be done by a person. We can keep the people a little bit more strategically focused and allow the software to take care of many more of those tactical operations. And then at the top here, we've got this analyze bucket, which is really kind of our, gives you the ability to kind of analyze all of those processes that we mentioned under automate. So, what bottlenecks exist, what's going well, what's going poorly, and really kind of help surface the information for you so that you can see exactly, where your organization lies. You can understand, all right, how is my business at a 10,000 foot view? And then how are kind of those micro processes performing, right? So do I have a high-low down in the warehouse, and that's resulting in a picking bottleneck? We can surface that types of information with process analytics. And so the next slide, please. Just to kind of illustrate quickly here some of the value that we've been able to create. So we have one organization here that we're kind of highlighting. They've actually been able to achieve 99% ROA or return on assets. And one of the really cool things about this is talking to Pete about this, and he would say the same thing. This wasn't just kind of a one-off. This was a multi-year, 90% plus return on assets, which is tremendous for any organization. If you're able to do this, you are really doing something exceptional. And so after they started to use our software, they saw an incredible turnaround in gross margin, return on assets, and really became a super, super profitable organization. And I think the foundation here is really kind of those automate-based products, right? It's those workflow type tools that really kind of allowed him to scale his organization. And then on the next slide, this is kind of more of those accelerate type functionality. We've seen organizations and we've seen people go from 10 clicks to just one. And what this means is much higher job satisfaction. It means much less training time, right? As you consider onboarding a new employee, which, so many organizations are trying to find help and bring in new employees to take care of things. What often happens is, there's a ton of training involved in that. And so what we're able to do is actually reduce that training time, increase the time to value, improve the time to value rather, with our Accelerate tools. And here's just one example. Paul Casaro from Picnic Time. I think here we've got managing partner as his title, but I talked to him just a couple of weeks ago. His official title is Captain Picnic, which I absolutely love for anybody curious about that. He's in a lot of our marketing material, and you'll be able to see some of his information. But they've really, really been able to accelerate their overall process, and he would largely credit that to Cavallo and the products that we're able to offer for his organization. And then on the next slide, just kind of one more example of how we've been able to add value is in the for Kyle Foreman. He's the president of Crown. They offer a lot of fixtures and tools. And for anybody that's actually seen Bar Rescue, their organization is quite often featured on Bar Rescue because they are able to come in and really offer bars and restaurants with really, really fantastic products. And so, for organizations, customer service reps really entering in orders, they've been able to see their output increase, 65%, which is tremendous for anybody that's dealing with really, really complex orders. Again, that gets back to job satisfaction. That gets back to the user is happier because they're not trying to fumble. They're not trying to always ask, what do I need to do next? They get really clear guidance with our workflow tools and with our acceleration tools. And so that's a little bit of kind of some of the case studies, how we've had value. If you want more information about that, happy to chat about that. So just to kind of take a look at our product ecosystem here a little bit, we like to kind of showcase our products within this, this customer to cash cycle or the sell to collect cycle, right? Where there's a lot of complex things happening at every step in this process, right? You're selling, so you're negotiating with the customer. You're trying to figure out terms. You're trying to figure out, all right, can we deliver the product on time? What's the promise delay? Do I actually need to get a prepayment for this, for this quote? Do I need to get, do I have a credit card on file? What things need to actually happen, right? And then it gets into your order process and you're asking questions of, I go, what's the fulfillment process like? How do I actually know that I've dotted all my I's and crossed my T's? Am I violating any business rules, right? Am I below margin? Am I where I need to be? In the warehouse, right? There's a lot of different things that are happening around picking issues and packing issues, and we can help expedite those processes and make sure everybody has really, really clear visibility with our order management dashboard. And then that's also powered by our order management workflow that you can see here. We can also do things like generate purchase orders automatically, which could help kind of your replenishment. So if you do demand-based purchasing, if you need to manage kind of your stock at scale and your orders, the way that you're receiving orders impacts how much you should have in your warehouse, we can help automate that process and make sure you're cutting the POs exactly when you need to cut them and not before and not after, really kind of resulting in a better customer experience for your organization. And then of course you can, collect, right? Like, all right, we've got to get paid at the end of the day. We can automate many of the invoicing processes and really kind of go ahead and capture all of the documents, right? And so it's kind of articulated in this kind of path of, if you're having these types of problems, we're going to add a lot of value to your organization at any point in time in here. And so on the next slide, what we have is really kind of an example of our really human approach to how we manage the process, right? So as we think about managing orders, we get a brand new order and it comes in below margin. Or what are you going to do about that? How are you communicating to the customer? Does that mean you need to raise the price? Who has the ability to approve or reject that order because it's below margin? And what we've created is really human and easy to use approval rules and business logic that allows you to kind of design this process that's hyper curated for your business. So if the order is below margin, all right, we can flag that document, make sure it never goes any further down the process. Or we could do things like delivery date check, right? So, you get a brand new order. It says the delivery date, the promised delivery date is tomorrow. I know there's no way I'm ever going to get that order out the door by tomorrow, right? And so with the document, the business rule can be flagged and say, okay, let's go ahead and capture this. And maybe your organization wants to move heaven and earth to make sure the order goes out on time. Alternatively, maybe that's an opportunity for you to proactively proactively communicate with your customer so that you can say, all right, we're not going to be able to get this order out on time. I apologize. Let's communicate with the customer proactively instead of having to wait, until, everything is, being it is purely chaotic, right? We can provide some of that visibility and make sure that you're equipped to do what it is that you need to do. So super excited kind of about our business rules, the approvals, and being able to manage this overall process. Next slide, please, Courtney. And part of that overall order workflow is really kind of making sure you're allocating inventory at the right time and place, right? So, you may want to allocate inventory only if an order is over $1,000, right? Or you may only want to allocate inventory for a certain warehouse or for really important customers. We can manage kind of your overall inventory allocations process. In other words, like how much do I have reserved for a specific customer? Back in, kind of in COVID, if everybody remembers, like everybody was trying to buy masks, right? And hospitals needed masks, and it was critically important that they have the inventory. It was super important to them. But you also had, like gas stations ordering masks. And the gas station, may need masks. That's perfectly viable, but you may want to prioritize the hospital before the gas station. You can do kind of that prioritization with our workflow engine to say, okay, we want to allocate inventory to these customers. They're really important to us. We want to allocate inventory, for these customers over $1,000 with these specific products on them. And you can really slice and dice this and make sure that it's super easy to use and say you're generating the logic to define who gets inventory and who doesn't, and make sure that's followed throughout your entire process. So next slide, please. And so as a part of that, what we also have is really kind of this consumer grade user experience for order entry. As we talk to customers, back to kind of the ERP, the Business Central, it's not necessarily built for, entering in really, really complex orders. And so we help users, we help organizations enter in orders quickly and, perhaps most importantly, accurately. And what that really means is creating that consumer grade UX. You pick up an order in this case in Cavallo's application, and you can really kind of intuitively see exactly what it is that you need to do. This is in the new order queue. I can see that it needs payment at the top, and then if I want to, I can submit it to needs deposit on the top right. And then you can hide the details. You can see the activity associated. You can see payments or related documents, and really kind of see holistically everything you need to see to enter in an order efficiently and accurately. Next slide, please, Courtney. And one of the things that we do is really kind of have a business conversation, frankly, about what are the challenges your organization is facing, and then we curate with you a workflow process that makes sense. And so we have that conversation. We're like, all right, what are you struggling with on the selling side, right? Is it managing customers? Do you have challenge configuring products or generating accurate quotes? How's your pipeline performing? Are you getting the visibility that you need to get? Or kind of more on the order side, like, all right, I'm managing customers is hard. I don't know when to generate orders, and I receive a bunch of orders, but I don't really have kind of a concrete process for all of that, right? And so we can help you manage this, and we talk in detail about every part of this process. Back to kind of the allocations thing we talked about here, like we can provide that visibility into, what needs to be picked, what needs to be packed, where is your overall orders, and then, feed that back to the people that matter, the sales reps, the customer service reps, so that they get that visibility into what's happening within their overall process. We can help you, with replenishment. If you have questions about receiving inventory or, analyzing your supply chain, or do you need to generate purchase orders? You do demand-based purchasing and you need to cut a PO automatically. Hey, purchase orders take forever to generate. We can help you generate purchase orders automatically and then plug those into kind of a really kind of a smart tool that helps you manage, all right, when should, I want to aggregate purchase orders until I get enough to actually send the purchase orders to my vendor, right? We can help you manage that process. We can do things like schedule shifting, help you manage your overall delivery process, help you analyze some of the things that really matter within your overall shipping process. And then, of course, do things like generate invoices. And one of the things here I have is manage taxes. The reason we get to put that here is because of the partnership with Avalara, and they really kind of own and take that. And any questions about taxes are completely handled. And it is tremendous to have a partnership where we just say, we don't have to worry about taxes. We have a great partnership that manages that for for all of our customers. So super thrilled about that. So next slide, please, Courtney. And that's it. So both of us are on AppSource, and so if you have any questions, feel free to let us know now. But we are both available on AppSource as well.
Okay. Well, I think now we have the survey. Are we sending that out after the fact?
Yeah, so stick around after the webinar. There will be a post-webinar survey that will pop up on your screen. And then right now, it looks like we do have a few questions that came through. And I just want to let everyone know that if you're interested in more information, you can reach out to Courtney or Alex at the emails listed on your screen. And you can also check us out on AppSource, on Microsoft AppSource. We're both available there. So it looks like we have a few questions that came through. The first one is, how often does your sales team have all of the information it needs to create orders on the first pass? For example, on-hand inventory, order history, etc. So it looks like that's probably for Cavallo.
Yeah, we see this is quite often a big challenge. So when organizations are, receiving orders, customer service reps, organizations kind of, at large are really kind of asking questions around, how much can I actually give to the customer, right? Like I have a finite amount of goods in my warehouse. Which orders should I fulfill? Right? Should you fulfill it for your most important customers? That could, isolate your mediocre customers that are still important. You still get a ton of revenue from them. Your share of wallet might not be quite as high, but they're still important for you as an organization, and you have really high gross margin with them. So which customer do you actually prioritize? That is, quite often a big hurdle and a challenge that people are facing, and people don't often know how to handle that, and we really don't have hey, this is a specific answer for this is the way you should do it. What we have is tools that allow you to define it for your business. So if you want to write business logic that says, all right, we should fulfill this order first, and then we should fulfill this order for second, what our tools allow you to do is really give you the capability to manage those orders and say, these are the important ones, these are less important, and you can do that with the workflow engine. So would love to show anybody that in more detail if they're curious.
Perfect. Awesome. It looks like we have another question that came through. Does physical presence still factor in post Wayfair?
Ooh, I think that's for me. That's a good question. I probably didn't touch on it enough, but yes, the physical presence factor still stands. So if you have a brick and mortar, if you have employees in a particular state, even if you go to a trade show, that can sometimes trigger Nexus. So on top of the economic piece and the click through that I talked about, affiliate, etc., physical presence, that the kind of original Nexus still stands as well. Good question.
Awesome. And then how easy is it for your company to recognize changes in financial performance, for example, order volume, gross margin, and then take the corrective action?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So one of the things that we do with our workflow engine is, again, kind of allow you to design that process. So if you have orders that are coming in below margin, it's really important to be able to capture those proactively for a number of reasons, right? So you want to make sure that the order doesn't go out, for one. And if an order did come in that's below margin, what is your organization doing to communicate to the customer, right? Like your customer just placed an order. You recognize that it's below margin, decision, if you want to fulfill it, so be it. That's a business decision that you can make, but it's also really important to, recognize internally that we're not going to be making as much money as possible. So again, it kind of brings into the equation kind of a human approach to making that decision. So you may want to fulfill the order, so be it. Why don't you have a conversation around that? Our product can kind of bubble that information up so that you can have that information and be able to have the conversation. And then on the customer side, we can make sure that you're communicating effectively with the customer so that things are working in a way that you would expect to. Let's help to maintain that relationship. If we've got to actually go increase the price, we know that's going to create a little bit of a rocky situation. And so you could surface that up, talk about it proactively, talk to the sales rep proactively and say, hey, we shouldn't do this again, right? So yeah, there's a couple of different ways you could handle that.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Alex. Looks like we had one more question come in. And that is, how difficult is automation to implement and set up? We're a small business and my firm does not have a lot of staff time to dedicate to tech support. So I think probably both of you could answer this question if you'd like, but let's start with Courtney.
Okay, yeah. So that is a great question. We have several routes you can take when it comes to implementation. It's honestly just dependent on each different customer's needs. So if you need a lot of support or if you're kind of ready to go it alone, we can find a particular implementation process for whatever your needs are. So in this case, we do have an implementation team who can handle this, and they're extremely helpful and responsive. And they can really take this on immediately as soon as you decide to go ahead and sign the dotted line, so to speak. We'll go ahead and get the process moving as needed. But then we have some that want to take a little bit of time to kind of let it all sink in. So I guess the answer is it's really just up to you, and we can modify our process based on your needs.
Yeah, so we find that we're able to get organizations live quite quickly and set up all the automations that you need. So in the BC space, specifically, it's very, very quick. So we install the extension, we deploy the application, and if you remember that slide with all the rectangles on it, we just talk through those pain points and we curate a process for you, make sure that your order flow is in a really good position, and really work to generate the automations for you in advance. And then kind of back to our consumer grade UX is we really kind of coach you and help you long-term own the process. You're really going to get kind of the most value from Cavallo if you can long-term recognize that there's a challenge, and then you course correct with our no-code workflow engine. And you don't like the way that something is going, you can adjust it with business rules and add new business logic, right? If you found an order go out the door with sooner than you wanted, or the inventory was allocated in a way that you don't want it to be allocated, or the delivery date is awkward, and you sold orders to, or sold product to a customer that has a past due balance and that's actually past their credit limit, right? We can course correct all of that, but really we kind of have that business conversation and set you up for success as early as we can.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So with that, we can go ahead and close. And like I mentioned, if any of you have any questions for our presenters today, their emails are on the screen and you can visit us on AppSource. There will be a survey that will pop up on the screen when the webinar concludes. If you take a moment, please, and fill that out. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great day.